It took women nearly 100 years to get the vote in 1918, and although much progress has been made in the fight for women's rights since then, there are still many areas where there is active discrimination against women. On Friday this week, the House of Commons debates the second reading of the Anti Discrimination Bill. And with me now is Joyce Butler M.P. to explain why the bill is necessary, what it hopes to achieve, and how it hopes to implement these plans. Well, Mrs. Butler, can you tell us first of all exactly what is in the bill?
Well, what the bill actually does is to make discrimination against women illegal. This is the important thing. If it gets through, it puts that on the statute book. But because it's a private member's bill, when I first drafted it, I had to consider what was possible to get through, and I limited the area covered by the bill to discrimination in education and training and employment, and some general forms of discrimination like that by professional bodies and trade bodies.
Now, how will this actually work, do you feel?
Well, it'll work by setting up, first of all, an anti-discrimination board. And this will have the responsibility, if any woman or any body feels that discrimination has taken place, then they can apply to the board, and the board will consider the problem. They'll try to resolve it by means of conciliation, but in the end, if all else fails, they can go to the courts.
How many people will be on the board?
The board has a chairman and 11 other members, and half of the members have to be women. And I hope that the people on the board will have a special knowledge and understanding of women's problems in regard to employment and so on.
What worries me about this sort of thing is, won't it be very difficult to prove there has been discrimination? Take, for instance, a man who has got a woman who's come for a job, because presumably in advertisements you can't have any reference to male or female.
That's so, yes.
So if a woman goes for a job that a man wanted a man for, can't he say that although the qualifications on paper are the same, he'll find some other way around employing her?
Well, this is always possible. Nothing is ever foolproof. But the mere fact that he has to think about this, and he has to think of the kind of case he can make, I think will have a very big effect on employers generally, and they'll think twice about using this kind of discrimination, which at the moment they do without any qualms at all.
Part of the tradition, isn't it?
That's it, yes.
This is what we've got to overcome.
This is what
And
happens.
does it equally apply to men then, as to women?
Yes, it does. There are some areas, there are not so very many, where men feel they're discriminated against. Some male nurses have complained that they can't get promotion because women get the senior jobs, that kind of thing.
Will it be up to individuals only to put their cases up to the board?
No. Professional bodies can do it, or groups of people, societies can do it, trade unions can do it.
Now, what about the trade unions? Do they support the bill?
Well, I don't think that the trade unions in general have really given full consideration to the bill, because after all, this is a private member's bill. And trade unions, being very responsible bodies, don't usually give detailed consideration to a bill until they think that it's really got a chance of getting on the statute book. Some of them do support it, and individual members of trade unions do support it in very large numbers.
But this is likely to get on the statute book, is it, do you think?
Well, one never knows with a private member's bill, and I would hope that sooner or later the government will take it over and will make it an official government bill. But we're keeping our fingers crossed for Friday that we're going to get it through.
Then a lot of men are suddenly going to have to start thinking a lot of fresh thoughts, aren't
Yes,
they?
they are. It's going to be quite a revolution.
Now, why did you start working on the bill in the first place?
Well, what really started me off was the feeling that things had got rather stuck in the mud. We were celebrating the 50th anniversary of women getting the vote. This was 1968. And a woman bus conductress told me that she had applied to be a bus inspector. And she wasn't allowed to be a bus inspector because she couldn't be a bus driver and therefore get the all-round experience which a bus inspector needed. And there was really nothing she could do about it. And this seemed to me all wrong. And I thought, well, now, if there was some body to which she could appeal, they could examine it, why, and what the facts and figures were, and really do something about it. And this is really what started me.
It sounds to me as though the bill is for women who go out to work, not for the woman who stays at home.
Well, it's because it's particularly concerned with employment, yes, but it also covers education and training. And I think it's very important for the woman who doesn't go out to work to have some kind of training at her fingertips, which she can use if she needs, because nearly half the women who do go out to work today are either single or widowed or divorced or separated, and the woman at home who doesn't go out to work never knows when she may need to. And at the moment, if she's forced by economic circumstances, a drop in family income, something of this kind, to go to work, she very often has to take just the first thing that comes along, which is low paid and a poor, unsatisfying job, because she's got no better training.
You're not trying to put pressure then on these women, because there's one word which gets my goat, I'm afraid, and that is people trying to call women who stay at home as cabbages, and they get this guilt feeling about it. So you're not trying to put pressure on them at all?
No, I'm not. No, I think the great thing is for women to decide what they want to do for themselves, and this is really the background to the bill, that's in the past and even still at the present time, women are not always doing what they want to do themselves. In fact, very few of them are, and I want them to have that opportunity.
So their education and their training is going to have to be changed, isn't it?
Oh yes, yes. We have to encourage many more women to have training when they leave school to start with, because again, very few girls, it's about a quarter of the girls leaving school, do have any kind of training when they leave school. It's quite appalling when one thinks of this. And so this has to be changed. I think the curriculum in schools has to be changed as well, to give girls the feeling that what they do is as important as what boys do.
Because really it can be said that boys' training is still better than girls, isn't it? There's no
Oh
question
yes,
there.
yes it is. There are many more boys going into higher education, taking up training, and there's still, over and over again, I've had arguments with neighbours and other people. They always say, well, of course, education and training is important, but it's more important for the boy than for the girl. Well, now, I don't accept that.
I know too that they can get in, say, to medical schools. I know of one instance with a lesser number of passes, at least with a lower grade of pass, than girls. In other words, a girl must have 3 Cs, in one instance I'm talking about, and the boy can get in with a lower grade. Now that's jolly unfair, isn't it?
Yes, this is absolutely true, and it's quite wrong. And of course some medical schools, I think nearly all of them, restrict the proportion of women students they'll take. And this applies to entrance to a number of institutions, and in some parts of the country to schools as well. Girls are deliberately restricted, although in many cases there are more girls qualifying than boys.
Let's go back outside education. What other areas are there of vast discrimination? Are there many?
Well, income tax is one which is wide open for reform, but this is very complicated, and I think this does need government action. We're moving very slowly towards greater equality there. And particularly the welfare services, social security, widows' benefit, pensions, this whole area, again, is based on the woman being maintained by the man and having no separate status.
Is this how it's built up, really, in the past? That the
Yes,
man has,
I think so. I think this is the reason for it.
that it's been the unit and it's been the man who's gone out to work and basically...
That's so, yes. Because I think what happened when the Industrial Revolution came in, the family had been an economic unit before then, and the only jobs that were open at that time, which women could go into, were really horrible jobs. I mean, the conditions were appalling for men or women. And so the tendency was for women to think, well, if they could keep out of outside employment, they would, and stay in the home. And they've been sort of left stranded in the home very often.
They are very slow at coming forward, though, or we have been in the past, women, haven't we? Because even now, the most number of women MPs there have ever been is 30, and I think at the moment I'm right in saying there are 26 in the House.
That is
so really, we don't bother to push ourselves very much, it seems, or...
Well, I think a lot of women feel that this is not that they don't want to do it, but they take responsibilities very seriously, and they wonder if they could cope with the hours of work and so on. But I think this is a mistake, and it's a diffidence, rather, a lack of confidence that keeps them back, rather than anything else. But with local government, we have the same thing, because 88% of councillors are men. And yet the woman in the home is living in the area of local government. She uses local government services more than her husband, who goes out probably into the city to work. And she's very well qualified, I believe, to serve on a local authority. And I would like to encourage more of them to take up that sort of work.
Yes, how do they have to do that? How do they go about that?
Well, you really need to be a member of a political party, but that isn't difficult. Most people have political opinions, and if you have ability, and particularly if you have knowledge of a particular aspect, like education or health and so on, which one can again acquire, then it's quite straightforward. There's a lack of good people coming forward.
Well, let's hope that some people watching
hope
today
so.
will come forward as a result of this. What do you feel are the main sort of contributions that women have made in society most recently?
I think that they have humanized society to a very large extent, where they have taken part in local authorities, in parliament and in public life. All the welfare provisions that we have today, whether women have actively promoted them, doesn't really matter. Some of them have, like Eleanor Rathbone with the Family Alliances and Edith Summerskill with her Matrimonial Homes Bill. But the fact that women have been interested in public affairs has given an impetus to all this kind of welfare development.
Can we talk for a moment about the Equal Pay Bill, because that becomes law in 1975, doesn't it? Should that not have gone hand in hand with your Anti-Discrimination Bill?
Yes, I think so. In fact, the first Anti-Discrimination Bill I drafted included equal pay provisions before we had the Equal Pay Bill. And actually, nearly all the women in employment, about 95%, will be outside the scope of the Equal Pay Bill, because they're not doing jobs which are comparable with men's. They're doing a whole range of jobs which are classed as women's jobs, which are very low paid. And I think this bill, the Anti-Discrimination Bill, will help to raise the status of those jobs.
You say help to raise the status. You don't feel that it's a cure-all, then?
No, unfortunately, I've been in Parliament long enough to know that no legislation is ever a cure-all. One makes a step forward and then one realises how much more there is to do. And I think the other thing is that this bill, if it becomes an act, is working alongside a great change in public opinion, a great movement of public opinion, which will also help.
Well, how does the Women's Lib movement fit into this feeling?
Well, I think the Women's Lib has brought a new dimension to women's rights. It's acted almost as a catalyst in stirring women out of complacency about having got the vote and having gone out to work and achieved a certain kind of equality. And I welcome what they've done. I don't go along with every single thing which every individual woman's Lib has done, but it's undoubtedly been a very great benefit in making people think about the problem.
Exactly. It's made men think about it
Men
a
as
lot
well
too.
as
They've
women,
laughed terribly about these bra bending incidents, that old hackneyed thing which started it all off as a bad thing, I think. But how do you think they will react if the bill is passed?
The women's
generally,
Lib?
men.
I think that the pattern of legislation always is that once a bill becomes law, then it's accepted by reputable employers, which most of them are, and so it will have an influence, without any question.
Not a revolutionary one, though, obviously. It'll be a gradual process, you think?
I think we're in a revolution, and this is one stage in the revolution, which I believe to be a very important one. And this is why I'm so very keen to get the bill through Parliament.
Can I ask you to really sum up for me now how you feel that this bill might change the position of women in society?
If I were to put it in one word, I would say it will improve the status of women, the value which women have in society. And this very much needs to be done, because so many things like television, advertising, and the things we've been talking about have the opposite effect. And this is what I want to do, to raise the status of women in society. And this, I believe, the bill will make a very important contribution towards doing.
And then let's hope that the women take the chances of this improved status. That's it, isn't it, too?
Oh, I think they will. I think one or two will come forward straight away, and then others will follow.